Hello, everybody. Welcome to another version of the Leadership Ethics and Organization interview series. Today, I have Alma Sommer, the lead person and innovator, founder of the Jackalope Freedom Festival, or Art and Music Festival, also. But before we get started with that, I want to just talk a little bit about the mission of Leadership Ethics and Organization. These are three areas that people have a little bit hard time really understanding what those exactly are and how much value they bring. But that's what this is all about, is to kind of rediscover that and rediscover it in a way that isn't that reflect the hierarchy, but reflects the roles and responsibilities that we each need to kind of adopt into our own lives and into our enterprises and organizations. So with that said, Alma, I just want to start by introducing you. We've had the opportunity to finally meet at Anarchy this past year, and I've always admired the work that you've done and all the different travels and places you've been and things that you've tried to do. But who is Alma Sommer, and where do people begin to know about you, I guess?
Well, I was raised a statist, and then I became an anarchist. Thank God. So that's a long story short.
Okay.
But I would like to approach your subject actually right away, as far as Jackalope goes. So I had a somewhat of a mentor, Ernest Hancock, growing up the last 10 years of my life. And he encouraged me to basically not be in charge. So like one thing I learned from him at PorcFest 2011 or 2012, he had this shirt on that said "Special Agent Not in Charge," and he actually like lit it on fire one year by standing too close to a torch. So, be careful of live flame. And that really just inspired me more, especially after the second year of Jackalope, when we were approached by the government, wondering all of these questions and wanting all these details. And Ernie sort of helped me through that situation as well as turning the website itself into a non-event, like specifically just the terminology and taking off like vendors and the map and things like that, just to sort of eliminate any like pushback, basically. So all of this has been done voluntarily without any permission, and this is its 9th year. It is like an experiment in living in a community for a week or 2 weeks or even a month, depending on how long people stick around. So, it's interesting just to see how things have gone, because a lot of times there's always like a small group of people in charge of an event or conference or things like that. So if there's an altercation with somebody or something happens, that small group of people find out, and a lot of people are kind of left in the dark. But the difference between that and Jackalope is, like, if something happens, you don't just tell the small group of people, you tell the whole community. The whole community knows whatever it is that's going on. Like if somebody shoots off a freaking flare and lights the meadow on fire, and like people come running to me, a nursing mother at the time, like, oh, the fire, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, tell everyone else, And there's already people like running to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of, that way. Like it creates a better response to any kind of negative thing that could happen in a community, really. And I like the feeling of that. It actually brings a sense of security much more than what the current government system has to offer as far as security. So I'm excited about this year, and I definitely consider myself special agent not in charge as well. And really what happens at Jackalope is created by the community. I offer what I offer as an individual, and that's about it. I do my best to sort of get people to help me put the stage together and hang tarps over it and things like that. And this year I know so many more people are coming than ever before. Like I know personally,
Nice.
hundreds of people coming. So I'm very excited.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is certainly an opportunity. I mean, because it seems like every other event has been canceled this year, and here's one in which there is no authority to cancel it. So I'm really excited to see how this all turns out, and I'm certainly rooting for you to do to really knock it out of the park as
Yeah,
far
this
as an
is
experience goes.
my thoughts on being affected by the government in a negative manner are like this. At this point, it's basically one of the biggest activist events in the United States, as far as I'm concerned. And if they decided to try and shut down the forest, which I think is a ridiculous thought in general, because there's so many other places we could go in that same forest. And at this point, we actually have a private property that's big enough to house everybody. So I'm really not even worried about any of that sort of thing. But the bottom line is that the people in the Forest Service, they live in that town. I've had multiple interactions with some of them. And I think a lot of people that live up in that area have left the valley, the city, to be left alone and, live their lives as far away from government really as they can, even if they decide to volunteer for the Forest Service and become a host, or and you can do that. Like, I would even suggest that anarchists do that, because they're the ones keeping track of who comes every 14-day stay. So if anarchists have that job, it's like awesome. And I actually met a guy
I lost the
one time.
paperwork. Whoops.
Yeah, I know. Or like, I just didn't sign you in when you got here, and there are cool hosts like that. I've had interactions with really cool hosts like that don't care. After leaving Baca Meadows last year, I crossed the freeway to the north side of the 260, and I stayed there for a couple of weeks and maybe longer. And, I actually did have an interaction with a Forest Service ranger there because of a friend of mine that was giving away free wood, and she had an issue with his sign giving away free wood. And so she knocks on my RV door and then steps like 20 feet back. I'm like watching her out my window. I'm like, oh boy. And then she's like, can you come out? And I was like, I opened my door, just like crack it. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to come out. I have two young kids inside. And that kind of like lessened her like abrasiveness, and she sort of came closer to the door. But like, people need to think that they don't just need to obey an authority figure that's wearing a costume. Like, they're literally a clown in a costume, like following some guidelines that's not even law. It's not even like natural law. It's like, why are you knocking on my door, lady?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So my friend is giving away free wood while he sits here and cuts wood. Like, he's allowed to do that. Like, it's just so ridiculous, some of the interactions we have. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of people up there of like mind already, and so many people have moved up to northern Arizona over the last 10 years. I know people that live in the valley in the winter, and then they live up here in the summer, and they've had houses up north for 6 years already. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Arizona. And I was thinking also today, I just want to mention this real quick, but as far as the Mexico border goes, I was watching one of Jeff Berwick's videos and closing it down. I seriously think that there would be one of the biggest, I don't think it would ever get closed because of so much commerce that goes between Mexico and the United States. Like, there might be hype that like people or groups of people are trying to close that sort of travel, but ultimately, I know how much commerce goes through that, and like, people on both sides depend on it for like their way of living. And it's just silly to think that something like that would actually get closed, even if they build a wall or anything like that. It's not going to stop people from traveling. Like, that's just, I think what needs to happen mostly is the fear needs to be let go of all of our minds, like, more than we can ever do it. Like, now is the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really the biggest obstacle is fear. And, the reality is way much different than the propaganda. So I think, because my sister was wanting to come to Mexico here recently, and essentially she said, they told me I can't come. And that was enough for her not to come. But as far as I can tell, the border remains
Here's another
open.
example.
Yeah.
My friend needed to get a surgery on her foot. They said, you can't get the surgery unless you have the COVID test. She said, I'm not getting the COVID test. And they gave her the surgery. It's consent. If you consent to being a slave, you're going to be a slave. If you don't consent, you will be free. That's it.
So I'm interested to hear your answer to the next three questions. The first one is about leadership. What is your definition and understanding of what leadership is? Because to me, you are a leader. You're leading a group of people through an experience, and really kind of like, you know, the bow of the ship. You're kind of leading the way through this morass of misunderstandings and misconceptions and delusions. But what's your definition of leadership, and what do you think of it in regard to how you apply leadership in your life?
Well, I don't know, but this is what came to mind. It's basically like a treasure hunt. And you're on this treasure hunt with all of your friends, and you're like finding these treasures, and you're connecting these dots, and you're exploring the hunt together, or not a hunt, but like a excursion. You know, it's more of like an excursion. And so I kind of see it as, you know, maybe just being the best person you can be along this excursion and inspiring others to do the same. I mean, this honestly could get really esoteric, and from my perspective, this conversation, because I do believe we are in a spiritual battle of some kind. I think there's like a massive fear parasite that's literally sucking a life force out of people in high doses right now, especially with just the whole situation going on. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. As a leader, I just see my path personally, like my purpose is to help people live free as much as possible. So through growing food and being self-sustainable, like those are my two most important things, you know, and teaching my children how to do that, and exposing my children to a community of other like-minded people that, you know, can help them along their path, like while they're here. So yeah, that's basically what leadership is to me.
I like it. Great. I appreciate that. So then ethics, what do you think about ethics? And is that something, I mean, I know that's a terminology that's kind of you know, it's all over the place for a lot of different people, but what does ethics mean to you? And obviously you're what I would consider a highly ethical person, but that could be different for different people. So what is your definition of ethics, and why is it important?
I mean, it kind of goes along the lines of what I just said as far as my perspective on leadership. I was at PorcFest one year, and this guy told me that ethics doesn't exist, and I didn't really understand what he even meant. I don't even think I still understand what he meant exactly. But you know, it's like it's this all comes down to a choice. There's a dog licking me right now. But sorry about that. That was a little distracting. It all comes down to choice, you know, and I choose to be a good person, and I choose to not be vile, and do my best to, you know, live along those lines. I know that there's things that exist that we may not even be able to change for the better. So I guess it's important just to teach your children the right things to do. Like I don't really know like how to get into that conversation really. Like we can talk about like if you want to read like the exact definition, and then maybe we can like explore it further, like how other people view it. But
Well, maybe I'll help you out here. There's something that says that ethics is the reciprocal of trust. And essentially it's, you know, the idea of, I think the way that I kind of define ethics is really kind of your own set of rules and expectations of other people and how you apply those. So if people see you practicing, you know, a particular standard, then there's that opportunity for them to kind of understand what they have as expectations of you. And that's really the basis for building trust. And, you know, as far as community is concerned, trust is important because, you know, a high trust community, a lot of things can get done, whereas a low trust community, which is kind of what society has become, people need, you know, reams of paperwork for contracts and stuff like that, and lawyers to interpret those contracts and all this other stuff, because people can't be trusted to perform, you know, what you know, because people don't understand how to have expectations of each other.
Yeah, and then
I don't
there's
know, does that
healthy
sound?
expectations. There's healthy expectations and unhealthy expectations of human beings as well.
Sure.
But as far as like learning if people are trustworthy, I think that cohabitating is one of the quickest ways to do that. So like these types of events or experiences like Jackalope really expose people for who they truly are, and it holds people accountable to a much higher level when there's community involved rather than just one partner, one person, or anything like that. And like that's why I've chosen to cohabitate in a community environment for my sake and for my kids' sake, because we have experience with other people. They get that contrast. It's not always good, but you know, that's what we strive for. So but they do get to see, you know, that contrast of what other people are like, and then maybe how to handle those situations emotionally or without having any attachment to the outcome, maybe, because I think a lot of letting go of the attachment to the outcome is, in my personal life, has been really healthy. And like it really just helps things kind of flow and like let things be, and it takes off a lot of stress, which in my eyes takes or gives me back years of my life that maybe were sucked from this parasitical life force that exists. So I'll go off on tangents like all day like that, but
Well, honestly, I think
yeah.
that's an exceptional answer, honestly. And it really kind of leads right into organization, because, you know, you're talking about community, and kind of one of the things is how do we deal with each other? You know, how do we organize ourselves so we understand, you know, how to get along, and then how to get things done. And it, you know,
Ooh,
that
this is a good one.
not only talks about like with other people, but it's also with ourselves too. How do we organize our own life? You know, so what is your um,
Well,
perception on the idea of organization?
I have found that the more organizing I've done, the more stressful it has been, and the more entitlement I've dealt with. And I think that's something that's not healthy in our community. People believing that they have this knowledge base entitles them to some amount of money or compensation or something like that. And that's why Jackalope has always been free. In the past, I've gotten personal sponsors and I've done things for those sponsors, and that's how I've made money for myself and my family. And I encourage all other people to do that. I encourage people to host workshops and promote them on their websites, sell their own tickets. I don't care. Like, I'm not in charge of you. Pay your way if you need to do that. If you want to host a concert, sell tickets, pay your way. It is seriously the most openly freeing thing that I could offer anybody, is to have a free event, like in the forest, where I did not create this forest. Like, it existed here before us. So here it is, still existing. It's for us, and we can, you know, experience it, and it's our choice, you know, what we do while we're there, and and if you want to accept compensation for your goods and your services.
Yeah, a very entrepreneurial, laissez-faire description, to say the least.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, let's move on to the actual event that you're not hosting, that you're not the person in charge of. The Jackalope Art and Music Festival, the Jackalope Freedom Festival. Which title is it? And let me share my screen and we can look at the website.
I just want to touch on one thing real quick before we get into the website. It is kind
Sure.
of a serious issue. There are a lot of people in the community dealing with mental health issues. And they know that the community is there for them year round to help them with whatever it is they need. And I would highly encourage that to happen. That being said, Jackalope is a family-friendly event, and kids are there, dogs are there. We welcome everybody. There has been experiences in the past with mentally ill people coming to Jackalope and having a negative experience on the community. And this is why I'm bringing it up, because I would just like to express my personal feelings on that matter, that there is a time and place for you to get your help. And I do hope that people are encouraged to come to Jackalope and heal from trauma. And I would just encourage them to also not come and traumatize anyone further at Jackalope. So that's really that. I would just like to touch on that a little bit, because there are a lot of people in the community that are here to help anybody that has been affected negatively by the state. And we want to do that so that we can heal and move past some of these things and not continue traumatizing others.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, in a lot of cases, mental health issues have been exploited by the establishment, and, a lot of the supposed help they're giving people is really kind of making them dependent on these medications that aren't really helpful at all. They're just slowly deteriorating them over a longer period of time. And, I've had my own personal experience with this as well. And, just getting yourself out of that circumstance is a pretty traumatic experience, because in a lot of the cases, like a lot of the medications, you can't just get off of them, one day. You can't just cold turkey get off of a psychotic, I don't know what the heck all those things, but there's a terminology for that. But you need to like meter yourself off over a period of time, and doing that is also kind of a very difficult experience. But with that said, you've got on your on the website here, we've got different bands that are going to be playing here. I see Miriam here. So Below is one of the.
That is Myra. That's Miriam's twin sister, for anyone that might be confused.
Man, I didn't know that.
And Ryan.
Okay.
And
Jeez,
Ryan's
I
parents.
didn't know she had a twin sister.
Yeah, I know, it's so funny. If you watch their Instagram, you'll see them together. Yeah, they're together a lot. So, and they are very identical. And Ryan's parents live in Arizona, so they come to Jackalope every year. And then Presence is coming. That's Grant Elman, I think his last name is, and he was at Anarchy. He was actually at your event and played the guitar.
Sweet.
So he's coming. I think he's bringing a trailer full of music equipment. Pretty exciting.
Nice. And I see we've got Larkin here on the trailer.
Yeah, that's from a few years ago. That was a trailer that we had as a stage with a tarp. That was probably like 5 years ago or something. I don't know. I think it says on there Jackalope what year. Can't really see in the video right now, but yeah.
It's kind of hard.
Yeah, he's come a few years, and Amanda comes every year too, because they're locals. They live in the valley.
Yeah.
And if you click on Keynote Campers, you can see a list down there at the bottom.
All right, I will do that next.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot more music than what I have showcased on the front page. There are so many talented artists and musicians just in the Liberty movement that are going to be there naturally. So there's going to be a lot of entertainment and performances and love. This is going to be so loving. I can't wait.
Angel was just on the show the other day, so but yeah, it looks like we've got quite a few people coming, so there's a lot of different opportunities to hang out with some very cool people.
Yeah, and they're all going to be camping. That's the best part, is like, you're not at a conference at a hotel where you barely get to see these people, or you only get to see them speak and then they disappear for the rest of the event. Like, you get to hang out and cohabitate with these people as long as they are there. This is real life living with these people. It is completely different than anything else you'll ever experience. I mean, besides events that are like similar to Jackalope but for different purposes, like Envision and things like that, you know. Like those are great. Like I would love to have like an amazing stage with like lights and music and all that one day, like, you know, but one step at a time.
Well, we can definitely feel the passion that you have for this. There's no doubt about that.
I'm just hoping for a laser light show and a projector that works well. And then also I spoke to Roger Veer, and he's going to do a video message for the Jackalope, since he's not coming to the States anytime soon. But I'm excited to hear his message and share it with people too. And I'm reaching out to Max Egan to see if he wanted to share a video message, and just a couple other people. If there is anyone else that listens to this that can't come for whatever reason, if you think you can't travel, I would try again. But if that's going to be your reason, then that's cool. And you can make a video if you'd like to share your message, and I will set it up to share.
All right. Well, that's definitely an option I am probably going to take myself.
Oh, I should
honestly.
probably I should probably suggest it's under like a minute or something like that, just so I'm not getting
Okay.
like 30-minute videos.
Sure.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, that sounds very very easy.
Yeah.
So lots of good people showing up.
Yeah, and a lot of these people live here locally too. So it's awesome. And most of these people live in Mexico half the year. Like they love Mexico. Like more of them would go to Mexico if they had that experience for like a minute, if they could really just think about like going there. Like I want to spend probably all winter in Mexico if possible, maybe at Macy's house, because yeah, I think that would be super fun.
Yeah, I feel strongly that yeah, you definitely need to be kind of cross-border when it comes to being a United States citizen, or within the territory that they claim to call, you know, the United States of America. I would suggest a plan B with all the stupidity that's going on. I did want to touch on your other, one of the other things that you do, which is called the Undocumented Human Project. I don't know, do you want to mention this at all? Because I think this is really another important step that I think you're really, you know, leading the way on for a lot of people.
Yes, I have 2 undocumented humans. There is actually more to that story. If you want me to go into it really fast, I can. I did end up having 2 hospital births. They were attempted home births that ended in hospital births. And I have found out recently that the hospital did send in a birth certificate for my son without my permission, without me signing anything. I know it exists because I've called the birth certificate office and asked them, and I can pull it at any time. His name is Baby Boy Sommer. And so there's benefits to this, and there's like maybe there's only benefits to this, really. For one, I could probably sue the United States government or something like that for fraud. And the other thing is, if Neo does choose to get a passport, which he's 5, he'll be 6 in October. So he's old enough to consciously decide that, I think, at this point, very close to like probably the next time we have the conversation. If he chooses to get a government passport, like he will understand it as a government passport. We have to give them money, is to give them his photo, like all of that stuff. Like I will explain everything is going into the database. Like we kept him out all that's this time. I've never posted a photo of my children on the internet. So like I know it's their choice at some point. And then maybe it would be a little bit easy as far as conversation goes. It's really just a conversation at the border, because I've already traveled to Mexico with both of them and back without any government forms. So I could just continue doing that. And I believe that that's very possible. I believe that in the future, there's going to be other mothers with children who are also traveling without papers. So I would like to highly encourage that, absolutely. But it is their choice ultimately. And he does have the option at this point to get a passport that says Baby Boy Sommer if I pull all of the papers. And then with Tate, I'm actually not sure. I still have to call the birth certificate office in Texas and find out. So as far as being undocumented, they are their faces. And I do plan on having more undocumented humans in the future. So that's exciting.
Sweet.
And yeah, Yeah, so it's cool.
Well, I think it's, I think you're leading the way in that, but I think all of us need to be undocumented humans. I think there's, one of the reasons I live in Acapulco is because I really have, like thrown that past life away as far as I'm concerned. And, if anybody, I'm not going to be harming anybody. So essentially I'm not going to be breaking any laws. So there's no reason for them to be asking for my documents. And if they did, I'd say I don't have any, and that's basically the end of the conversation. So I think, a lot of, like you said earlier with consent, it's one in which they try and trick you into consenting and identifying yourself as, this persona that then they can prosecute and tax and all these other things. And so, the other option is just don't consent to that, So I think
Seriously.
I think it's the way to go, especially for people that want to be free, is to really take on your own authority. I know it's a lot more difficult when it comes to traveling and crossing the imaginary borders and so forth. But for those that that need to do that, they've got to make their own decisions. But honestly, for me, it's I love where I live, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I invite people back every year, because I want to give them that opportunity to kind of see how it could be done a different way. And
I think if Mexico knows how many of us want to ride those buses and fly those planes without papers, they're going to be like, bring them on.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is if we can kind of create the circumstance where that can start to be realized, then it's like, do you want money in your pocket, or do you want like a quality of life that's like beyond anything you ever expected before?
Yeah.
Well, then think about changing, who you call your boss, and start doing it yourself. But, whatever.
It's always who you know. If you know that border patrol checkpoint guy, whatever, he'd just be like, whatever, okay, go. I'm just saying, like, you make friends where you got to make friends too. Like, I don't know, maybe some of your listeners have heard of John Titor, the time traveler. The time travel machine was created by GE. And I've learned further information that all of the time travelers are called John Titor, not just one guy. So that's weird. And one of the things in his future that he talked about was World War III, where like half of the people on Earth died or whatever, and they're like rebuilding society. And one thing he mentioned was that the military and the civilians work closely together to rebuild society. And so I think if we have that mindset, as well as like attempting to defuse any like negative situation with a person who believes they are in authority of you, like those two things, we can come to like a much brighter future, like very, very quickly. So I think, continuing on and like not dividing us, since we're all humans, is the path to somehow relate. And I know that like even like in these situations where like I've had experience with a social worker at the hospital, whatever, I related with her right away about how my friend just became a social worker, or she just graduated, and being able to relate with her like that right away had her then in return relate with me about homesteading or something like that. And so I think that in the end of the day, like we all eat dinner unless we're fasting, and let's just continue eating dinner together.
Yeah. Well, what I would call that is an intellectual self-defense. It's not a physical self-defense. It's like really going beyond that. It is like our ability to influence other people, how we develop that. That's certainly one of the things that I think has been really taken out of our purview as far as what we're capable of, is being able to connect with other people and defend ourselves intellectually, which is a much broader and more capable. It is like the Jedi mind trick for a lot of people. It's being able to communicate with people in ways that they don't necessarily understand, but really kind of creates the circumstance where you can build a bridge between where you are and where they are.
Yeah, I'm definitely sorry about the dogs. They're barking. But yeah, I'm glad that I've gotten to where I am in my mindset right now. So I'm happy about that. I feel very blessed and grateful that I'm here. And I do have the opportunity to speak what's on my mind and share that with people. So thank you for offering me this opportunity.
Yeah, well, we've got a couple people in our group here today, and I want to try and offer the opportunity to ask questions. So if any of our other guests here want to ask a question, this is the time to do it. So if anybody wants to come off the mute, feel free to interject. Oh, come on! I know we're not shy here.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Great. Sorry, I chimed in a little bit late, but the minute I chimed in, I was fascinated by this conversation. I'm feeling very optimistic, even after just catching the last 20 minutes. I look forward to catching the replay. And yeah, great conversation. Keep up the great vibes, man. I don't have any specific questions. Just I just want to comment, I'm surrounded by solutions. These last few days are just coming at me left and right. And another example is what just happened. I happened to glance on Discord. I said, oh, Mike's on. I'm driving around. I'm in Paris, Texas right now. Don't ask me why. And last night I got together with our Freedom Cell group. All of us got together and we got on a call with John Bush, talking about solutions, creating counter economics, mutual aid. So everywhere there are solutions coming out, people are really starting to recognize the possibilities that are out there and getting things done. Yeah, very nice to meet you guys, your guest, and great conversation.
Awesome, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just Chris is one of the group of people that I've met through what's called Autonomy, and Autonomy is kind of another word for it is the University of Reason. So essentially, it's a group of liberty-minded people that are really kind of taking back that opportunity to be, outside of the scarcity mindset, to be the abundance mindset, and to kind of retrain their minds and their, a lot of their personal habits that have been conditioned by, 15,000 plus hours of institutionalized schooling, and and all the media and all the other stuff that's kind of put us in the box. Autonomy is kind of one of those ways of how to work together and educate ourselves, and it's the brainchild of Richard Grove, but it's also kind of morphing into something called Autonomy Unlimited, which is kind of a marketing company and consulting company that allows people that are entrepreneurs to learn and facilitate them marketing, their services and products in a way that's ethical. And so,
I
Chris
have
is a great example.
I have a product. Just saying,
Sure.
I'll tell you about it. It's an agris land acquisition, and it does have to do with buying land from the government. So a lot of people might have some cognitive dissonance there. I do see this as a stepping stone, as a way to somehow in the future write our deeds or pull the patents forward, which is still like permission. And but the difference would be, instead of recording with the government, you record through the public processes. So I think that there's a way to do things differently in the future, and that we will be the ones who decide that. We won't be going by these old written rules from people that died years ago. But so what I've put together is an agris land acquisition, and I have found 4 properties that are basically taken through what's called adverse possession, except for instead of you going and squatting it and paying the taxes and doing adverse possession, the government just takes it after you haven't paid your taxes for 3 years. But it's basically the same process, except for they don't go and live there and actually prove that they own it. they just steal it. So that actually is the difference. So basically what I've done is I've put together a proposal for investors to invest in these properties, and the proposal lays out everything, how much the property costs, where it is. I have information about it. And then as far as selling it, if we sell it in full or if we sell it in a term, like a 24-month term, how much the investor makes and how much I make. And I put this together to start making a living for my family on my own. And that's why I've done it, because it does not require business license or a real estate license or anything like that. I can do this as an agorist, and I can get people who I've been connecting with for the last 10 years as an agorist, land cheaply and make a living for my family. So, and they could all be living in like these same little clusters of area where they trust each other and they know each other and they can build with each other. So, I mean, I'm super excited about that. And what I would like to do is teach others how to find these properties and even create the proposal or sell my proposal so that they can put their own together and start making a living for their family. And I think the more that we actually repossess these properties and figure out a way to eliminate them from the tax rolls, we will start becoming more free again.
That sounds very interesting.
Michael, this girl is awesome. We got to get her in Autonomy, man. If nothing else, as a guest speaker.
Yeah, we'll definitely, I think we can definitely make those arrangements. Yeah, so how would people find out more about that if they're interested in finding out more information about that, Alma?
Well, right now the properties that I have in my proposal are around $500. So if you are interested in investing in a $500 property and making around $1,000 in return, that is what basically it comes down to.
Oh,
you can send me a message.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty easy then.
Yes. I already got my first investor. I got my first property. I have the deed. It actually doesn't include any tax information, which I'm very curious about. It does not say that I'm subject to. And so like other warranty deeds I've had in the past have actually said subject to taxes, blah, 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 whatever. But this one is a quit claim deed, and it doesn't say that I'm subject to any taxes. So I'm really going to just start looking into this stuff and like figuring out how like I can write the deed myself. I already know that. So I should be able to write it with whatever language I want. And then that be the end of it. Here you go. If you want me to pay you $30, record this, that's cool. You get your $30, but take it off of the tax, the tax rolls. Okay.
Well, are you familiar with the idea of the allodial title and the kind of idea that all the land is owned by the Queen? That's kind of the British Empire stuff, but to some degree, a lot of places are of that nature. I think Texas is one of the few places in the United States that you can still have an allodial title, but I don't know a whole lot about that, but it's kind of interesting how they've twisted everything so that it is difficult to understand if you really ever own property or not.
And it's different everywhere. Sometimes you have to pull the patent forward through the BLM. Sometimes you go down to the county and it's like, you have to search for this information. I actually asked the county when I bought this property if I could pull the patent forward. And she's like, well, I'm not going to help you with any of that information. You have to come down here and search for it yourself. Like, that's what she told me. And I'm like, you'll see me soon. Like, you'll see me. Let's have a conversation. The taxes on this property are only $13 a year.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. It's under an acre. It's only 0.2. So it's in a little lot.
Where is the property, if I may ask?
It's in Sun Valley, Arizona, east of Holbrook. So it's right next to the petrified forest. And I've done extensive research in this area. I used to design cell towers for a living for 7 years. Was my slave job until I quit. And then, so that's how I learned how to do all the property research. And I found this guy in the middle of the petrified forest named Samuel Lawless. He must have had his name changed, or his parents named him that or something. I don't even know. And he owns this huge property in the petrified forest. Like, nobody else is around him. And I've seen street view images that say engineers of the apocalypse. So it's only a matter of time to like go out there and connect with all these people. But like, I know bikers come out there and have big parties. I've seen the pictures and stuff. So I'm interested to meet this guy and see what they've been building for years already out there.
Nice. Wow, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're limited on time here. I've got things to do. I'm sure you've got things to do as well, as busy a life
Yes.
as you're putting on, and plus the fact that this event is coming up pretty quickly, so I'm sure there's a lot to do. But with that said, I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, Alma, to share with us what's going on, and
Thank you.
bring us your brilliance. Thank you so much for that. And I'll kind of leave it as you to get the final word.
Well, if you haven't already, check out the website. It's jackalopefreedomfestival.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook. There's a group on Facebook, and we are also on Telegram. So I suggest that you can join at JackFest, and it's we'll give you the real group after you join that. So it's kind of where we test our spam, see if spam's coming in. We weed out the spammers that way. So at JackFest on Telegram, you can join that, and then we'll give you the real group.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Alma. You have a wonderful day, and
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be talking
You too.
soon. Take care.
Heck yeah. Bye.